BBC Radio.
6 Music. You are now entering a parallel universe.
And wipe your feet on the way in.
Marc Riley, BBC 6 Music.
Bass. Vision, dreams of passion. And all the while I think of you. A very strange reaction. The more I see, the more I do. Something like a phenomenon. Baby. Telling your body to come along. But white lines blow away. Blow. Rock it. Blow. Ticket to ride. White line highway. Tell all your friends they can go my way. Pay your toll. Sell your soul. Pound for pound costs more than gold. The longer you stay, the more you pay. My white lines go a long way, either up your nose or through your vein, with nothing to gain except killing your brain. Higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. And don't ever come down. Pure as the driven snow. And now I'm having fun, baby. It's getting kinda low. I need some one-on-one, baby. Don't let it blow your mind away. Baby. Go till little highway. Cause white lines blow away. Blow. A million magic crystals painted pure and white. A multi-million dollars almost overnight. Twice as sweet as sugar, twice as bitter as salt. And if you get hooked, baby, it's nobody else's fault, so don't do it. Free. Rock. Free. Rock. Free. Rock. Free. Rock. Rock. Go. Higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. And don't ever come down. Free bass. Too high. Don't you get too high, baby. Turn you on. You really turn me on and on. Cause you gotta come down. My temperature is rising. When the thrill is gone. No, I don't want you to go. A street kid gets arrested. Gonna do some time. He got out 3 years from now just to commit more crime. A businessman is caught with 24 kilos. He's out on bail and out of jail, and that's the way it goes. K, sugar, K. Athletes rejected, governors corrected. Gangsters, thugs, and smugglers are thoroughly respected. The money gets divided, the women get excited. Now I'm broke and it's no joke, it's hard as hell to fight it, don't buy it. Free, rock. Rock. Free. Rock. Free. Rock. Free.
Not as good as Duran Duran's original, but it's good. Grandmaster Flash, Melly Mel and White Lines. What are you laughing at, Bob Hughes?
I'm laughing at the fact I knew you were going to say, I haven't written down Duran Duran. I knew you were going to try that one, mate. So
predictable, moi.
Never gets old. I love that. Not Duran Duran's version, that one we just played,
Right,
by the way.
fine.
All right, so look at the NME here, 25th of August 1984. And on the news page, you got Tom Verlaine's second Virgin album is cover, featuring many of the musicians that he used on his previous album, Words from the Front. He's currently in Britain and is said to be checking out the best of our studios in younger bands. And a Virgin spokesman said the possibility of live dates can't be ruled out. So there was a time, wasn't there, in the 80s, or around this time, from 84, and I think through to maybe 86, 87, where he was over here quite a lot and was looking at, I think he lived here for a while as well. He became a bit of an Anglophile for a short period of time. And he produced, there's a Glasgow band called Friends Again, and he produced The Room as well, didn't he, in 84? And then we weren't quite sure when he appeared on the Tube with Love and Money. I believe that was 87, because I just looked it up. But there was that kind of period where he seemed to be everywhere in the UK.
Yeah, and, well, as you say, that appearance on the Tube was great. He did bomb, didn't he, as I remember? And it was fantastic. Yeah,
it was amazing. I remember talking to Dave Jackson of The Room a year or so ago, just talking about that whole experience. And I think Lloyd Cole and the Commotions had covered Glory, and Verlaine wasn't too impressed with it. He said it sounded like a Soviet military band.
Really?
Not in a good way, yeah.
Right.
Well, he was, notoriously precious about his work, wasn't he?
And you did say that he didn't seem to be that impressed with his native he's not native New Yorker, but David Byrne. Yeah, that was another thing. I think one of Love and Money, was it James Grant? I think maybe mentioned in passing that he'd seen David Byrne on TV the night before and said, I saw your pal on TV the other night, and Verlaine said, he's not my pal. And that was the end of that. Ooh, bubbling away.
Opposite that, you got the Bluebells, one of the headline acts at this weekend's Scottish Rock Festival in East Kilbride, will now also top the bill at another festival, and this one takes place in the mind-boggling atmosphere of a holiday camp. It's a special 3-day event being staged by Butlins at their Minehead camp in Somerset in late September. Other acts involved include Bad Manners, Dr. Feelgood, Marmalade and Mungo Jerry.
What? Hang on a minute.
I was going to get to that.
Is that the most eclectic bill in the world ever? Mungo Jerry?
Bad Manners, Dr. Feelgood. Other artists are being confirmed. So a lot of this little news piece here is punctuated with big exclamation marks. But obviously, when you look at it, I know this is 1984, but this was a forerunner, wasn't it, of all tomorrow's parties and that whole idea of having staging gigs in holiday camps. Why not?
It's a brilliant idea. I mean, I only ever went to one of them at Patelli, and it might have even been the last one. And I was supposed to go to what really would have been the last one in Iceland, but it didn't pan out. But that wasn't in a holiday camp. I think it was part of an RAF base, actually. But yeah, it was such a great idea. I don't really know how it failed, but it did eventually.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, but like you say, a great idea. And of course, it's a ready-made stage, audience, place to stay. It's all there for you, isn't it? Makes sense.
I mean, the only place to get any food, well, we were there, and it was just for the one day. You only went to see OCs and the Nightingales and stuff. Was one fish and chip shop, and that was it, really. So, as you can imagine, it was a bit busy.
Limited options.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Also in the news, the National Rock Festival, due to take place this week in Northants, but cancelled when the local council refused to issue a licence, may revert to being the Reading Festival next year. Festival organiser Harold Pemberton plans to view a new site for himself in the near future, and a decision will be taken soon afterwards. So two things here. Harold Pemberton, famous, a legend really, because not only did he start the Reading Festival, but he was responsible for setting up the Marquee, wasn't he, in Soho?
I didn't know that. Right, okay.
Yeah, he was. So the backstory to this. So in 1984, it was a Conservative-run local council effectively banned the festival by designating the site for use for development. So a load of acts had already been booked, like Marillion, Hawkwind, Boomtown Rats, Jethro Tull, Steve Hackett, etc. But Labour regained control of the council in 86, and they gave permission for a site to be held. It's sort of adjacent to the original one. And so that's how the Reading Festival managed to have legs and continued for a while.
Great.
Also in the news here, you got Frankie Goes to Hollywood are still busy working on their debut album, which ZTT plan to release in October. It's called Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. But a spokesman said he still doesn't know if it'll be a single, a double or a triple. Meanwhile, yet another version of Two Tribes is issued this week and guaranteed to be positively the final mix. It says here, along with Relax and Two Tribes, between them, there's now been a total of 13 official British releases of these two singles, not counting imports and white labels. And ZTT also issued 3 different versions of their other single, Dr. Mabusa by Propaganda. I mean, talk about, really flogging product for all it's worth.
It's hard to imagine what they did with it for so many different versions, isn't it, really?
all these mixes. And ZTT, of course, you know, Trevor Horn's production and everything, aside from the music, it was still seen as so novel, wasn't it? So they probably felt like they could sort of, you know, stretch that out for as long as they possibly could.
Well, you know, I did see the tube footage filmed in Liverpool of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and obviously somebody within the programme, did see something in them, and they were obviously right eventually, but they sounded really ragged, as I remember, on the footage. And then, of course, the record comes out, and it's just, you know, spellbinding and an amazing sound. So Trevor Horn is a hugely talented fella.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about that. Also, as a bit of a footnote to that, composer Jerry Marsden of Jerry and the Pacemakers is reported so far to have earned £22,000 in royalties from Frankie's version of Ferry Across the Mersey. He obviously did all right out of that. Just beneath that, Gang of Four among acts featured on the soundtrack album from The Karate Kid, one of this year's most successful films in the States. They performed Desire, especially written for the movie. Amongst others on the LP are Survivor, Jan and Dean, Commuter, Paul Davis, and Joe Esposito. So at the risk of having a very, very brief conversation here, have you ever seen Karate Kid?
No.
Me neither.
Good job this isn't Kermode and Mayo, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah. Anyway, singles reviewed by Tony Parsons, who, unsurprisingly, is not keen on very much. He's got the Kinks' Good Day. He says, hearing Ray Davies putting out stuff of this low order is rather like watching Joseph Turner knocking out pictures of Matchstick Men. As for the Smiths, William, it was really nothing. He says, there is a wistful optimism about the music they make that's very easy to like a whole lot, but the main man-child's self-adoring ennui sticks in your craw once you realise that this is what he's going to be like forever. Anyway, also the Cocteau twins are out.
So we need to explain that you are in Yorkshire, Bob, but I can see you on Zoom, and I saw that wry look of smile on your face.
Oh, thank you, yes.
Cocteau twins then.
Kiss right, get to so kiss right.
Cocteau Twins on BBC Six Music. I'm Mark Riley, and that is Bob Hughes.
Yes, so we'll look at the NME here for the 25th of August 1984. Jonathan Richman is back, so everybody had been wondering where he'd been really since around about 1977, says here, but now the Five Strong Modern Lovers are touring to publicise one of this year's best singer-songwriter albums, Richman's Jonathan Sings, which is out here on Sire, and its author's heart has been gladdened when recently critics have noted ties with the stuff that came before, his classic stuff. He does concede here, obviously Roadrunner was the song that he was known for really, and he does concede there was never a lot of encore calls for Ice Cream Man or I'm a Little Dinosaur. The sense of spontaneity on Jonathan Sings, writes the NME, is enough to put one in mind of Buddy Holly. Just like Holly himself, Norman C. Odom hails from Lubbock, Texas, better known as the legendary Stardust Cowboy. Despite considerable opposition from other legendary Texans of the time, it's a single recorded by Odom, Paralyzed, which managed to encapsulate the entire psychedelic tradition. The tracks on the Ledge's brand new LP, Rocket to Stardom, which includes Rebel Yells, Bird Calls and Random Conversations, were culled from 18 recorded just in 1 hour, and he's had the comeback waxing pressed in either clear or bubblegum pink vinyl. Why? Well, that was a suggestion from another long-time fan, Dolly Parton. She thought I could call it Passionate Pink, says Norman. So this is somebody that we've covered on we've covered it a few times on our David Bowie podcast, but he's an interesting kind of cult figure, isn't he? He's kind of revered. Obviously Bowie adored him just because of the oddness, the quirkiness, and lots of other people as well.
Well, I mean, he did say that Bowie should give him some money for using the Stardust bit of the legendary Stardust Cowboy, didn't he? But Bowie did invite him onto Meltdown Festival, didn't he?
He did, yeah, that's right, yeah. Recently co-billed with longtime idol Tiny Tim, Ledge now nurses two new ambitions. He wants NASA to play his stuff on the space shuttle, he says. He'd also like to advertise Diet Pepsi. Oh.
Right.
Didn't they take one of his things into space? Am I just dreaming that up? I'm sure there was something, but anyway.
I don't know, mate.
On the new film front, you've got the company Wolves, Richard Pryor's Here and Now, and also Paris, Texas, reviewed by Cynthia Roche. She said there's something poetic about the fact that the great American movie can now be made by a West German like Wim Wenders. Paris, Texas could do with a 15-minute trim in its second half, but it's an undeniable classic and a personal best. The soul of the film, a parable of freedom through speech, of amnesia and jealousy, is the vision of playwright Sam Shepard. But credit for the actual cinematic language of the film can be split a further 4 ways. Apart from Wenders, there's cinematographer Robbie Muller, editor Peter Prisgoda, and soundtrack composer Ry Cooder. Cooder's score spins out with remarkable subtlety the subtext of a story wherein the idea of family is re-examined. It is one of the most memorable soundtracks, this, because it's so sparse, isn't it?
Yeah, it's legendary, isn't it?
It is.
I have to say, I mean, Ry Cooder was mixed up with the Long Riders, wasn't he? Which is one of my favourite soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, that's terrific. Just briefly, AC/DC interviewed by Matt Snow. He says they're the biggest, baddest nightmare you ever had about heavy metal. They've sold upwards of ridiculous millions of records. He's sat having a mug of tea with Angus Young. He says they typify how heavy metal became ghettoized throughout the 70s to end up as the complete antithesis, at least in theory, of the progressive rock from which it originally sprang. Despite personnel changes, the most well-known being Brian Johnson, being recruited after Bon Scott's death in 1980, AC/DC have for years looked and sounded exactly the same. They stand resolutely opposed to the pop ethic, which I suppose is why they remain so popular. There is something to be said about not changing, essentially, at all, isn't there?
Well, you wouldn't level a criticism at the Ramones, for instance, would you? But you would at AC/DC, maybe just because he didn't like the music. But, I think they won that one anyway, didn't they?
Yeah, no doubt about that. And back to the indie singles, we've got 3 Johns.
Yeah, Do the Square Thing.
Go
Lee Johns and Do the Square Thing. Mark Riley, Bob Hughes, Parallel Universe.
Yes, the NME 25th of August 1984. The Go-Betweens are playing this week at the Hoochie Coochie Club in Edinburgh. You've got Mark Almond at the Gold Diggers in Chippenham, Johnny Thunders at the Warehouse in Leeds, Bo Diddley at Wimbledon Theatre, the Loft at the Roebuck on Tottenham Court Road, New Order at Portsmouth Guildhall, you've got Cabaret Voltaire at Derby Blue Note, Pete Shelley at the Beer Keller in Liverpool, Jack Bruce and Friends at Blackburn King George's Hall, John Cooper Clarke and Nico at Dingwalls in Camden. I wonder if that's when they were living together in Brixton.
Right. Could be.
Johnny Cash at Preston Guildhall, Little Stephen and the Disciples of Soul at Birmingham Odeon. You've got Bobby Womack at Oxford Apollo, Gun Club at Camden Electric Ballroom, but gig of the week without a doubt at the Clarendon Hotel, Hammersmith Broadway, Mark Riley and the Creepers, supported by Yeah Yeah No. Mark with a K, I notice here, Mark.
Ooh, we played that venue. I was talking to Colin Newman of Wire about that very venue not long ago, because we played we were supporting Wire at the time as well. Right, okay.
Oh, okay, right. Live review front, you've got Violent Femmes at the venue in London. This was quite a famous one, or infamous one, because they were on Rough Trade, and they were huge fans of the Smiths, weren't they? So they'd gone along, I think they'd invited, or Jeff Travis had invited the Smiths along to this gig, and somebody, I think it was the drummer Victor De Lorenzo, decided it would be a great idea for an encore for everybody in the band to just kind of strip down to their pants and do a version of This Charming Man by saying basically, I haven't got a stitch to wear. So the Smiths themselves were at the back of the auditorium and up to that point, had been really enjoying it and seemed to be really getting into it. And then when they did this little stunt at the end, all their faces, Victor told me a few years ago, visibly soured, and they just left. So they never got to meet them.
I mean, I can imagine his Nibs being that, but not the other three. But anyway, whatever.
Yeah, okay. And, we've got to go, haven't we? I think we're going to finish with Kraftwerk.
We are doing that. Thanks very much, mate. You take care of yourself. And
You too,
thanks,
mate.
everybody, for listening. We're back on Monday night with Robert Forster live in session. Giddy's next, and here's Kraftwerk. Cheers all. Bye-bye.
d'Azur et Saint-Tropez, Tour de France, Tour de France, les Alpes et les Pyrénées, Tour de France, Tour de France, dernière étape Champs-Élysées, Tour de France, Tour de France. Pédaler en grand braquet, Tour de France, Tour de France, sprint final à l'arrivée, Tour de France, Tour de France.
Prepare to exit the parallel universe.
Marc Riley, BBC Six Music.
And shut the door on your way out.